The next speaker is going to be Andy Balaam. Andy is an expert on end-to-end encryption and works at Element. Andy, take it away. A big round of applause for Andy, please.
Thank you. Okay, so first of all, if anyone's been here for the entire Element Crypto team takeover of this room for all 3 talks, well done. You have a lot of stamina. And if anyone's feeling a sense of familiarity, then it was actually my identical twin with the identical name who gave the talk 2 hours ago. But anyway, you have to put up with our weird extended family. So yeah, all right. So the title of this talk I came up with was "Why do I have 2 passwords?" Which is a thing that a lot of people ask me. I don't know if they ask you that. And we will get to the answer to that specific question, but really what I'm here to talk about is trying to find a whole set of concepts and words for those concepts that help us explain how the end-to-end encryption works to ordinary people who don't want to learn about what end-to-end encryption is. So yeah, I'm from the Element crypto team, and as I said a couple of hours ago, we're the people who made the unable to decrypt messages go away, and now you never see them, right? It's certainly better, isn't it? Sure. All of this work that I did and lots of my colleagues did, we did it on Element time, and it's entirely for the benefit of the Matrix community as a whole. It's also worth pointing out that everything I say here is still up for debate. We're trying to come to a consensus on how to talk about this stuff, and it's still changing, but we are going to get there, and we're going to make it. We're going to solidify some stuff. Obviously, the conversation will continue, but this isn't just going to go on forever uncertain. We are going to come to some conclusions. Okay, so this talk is about what words we should use, what concepts we should use to talk to users about the fact that their messages are encrypted and the ideas they need to understand that as far as they do. So we'll very briefly start off by talking about why would we even bother doing this. Then we'll spend some time going through some actual words, and I'll try and explain my understanding of what each word means and how we would use it. And then I'm going to go a bit off-piste and try and come up with some metaphors that fit with these words, that are just a good way of thinking about that hopefully connect with what's actually happening at the right level, that doesn't have all the detail, but it does give you the right kind of idea about what how these different things work. I'm going to stop rambling and start talking. All right, so first of all, why would we do this? Why would we come to a shared set of words? Why don't we just let UI designers of a particular client figure out a word that makes sense to their users? To some extent, this is obvious, right? Like, I guess the real question is, how much should we standardize? I feel like some level of agreement on how to talk about these things is obviously useful. If you change from using one client to another client, it would be nice if it made some sense to you when you did that. If you're talking to your friend who's using a different client, it would be nice if you had the same ways of talking about what you're doing, especially if you're asking them to verify or something like that. It would be nice if they had a verify button, if that's the word we're going to use. But most importantly, and the thing that's really come out to me through doing this work, is if we come up with the right words and the right set of concepts, we will understand it better. And by we, I mean everyone from someone trying to persuade their friend to use Matrix, through to someone who has a deep understanding of all the cryptographic stuff that's going on. If we get a set of concepts that are how we explain these things to someone who's not an expert, it hones our own thinking about what's important, what things should be separated, what things should be gathered together. And as implementers, if we have a better understanding, we are likely to produce fewer bugs. So let's try and build a shared vocabulary. And let's start by just going through some of the words that we've proposed and the concepts that go with them. Okay, so start with the controversial one. I initially wrote this document and wrote that device was the right word to use for this thing called this thing that you get when you sign in to Matrix. And basically, we found it impossible to agree on whether it should be device or session. So device/session is the word to come up with. This is the worst one. It's really important that we have this idea. This is much more important than it is when you're just logging into some kind of website or something like that. When you have a device, it has information on it that is important for your end-to-end encryption. So when you establish a session or make a device, what you're doing is signing in. So you do a sign-in process that would be familiar from a website or some other app. When you sign in, now a device or a session exists. And when you sign out, that device stops existing. And signing out in some applications is not significant. All the information is stored on the server, so when you sign in again, you're back to where you were before. But in Matrix, signing out is significant. The information that is stored locally on your device is no longer there anymore. That's what signing out is. And so the fact that a device stops existing when you sign out is more important than... it illustrates the point of why we might need to actually talk about devices or sessions as a kind of entity that matters. Okay, so after you have logged in to your device, you need to verify it. And if you've been in the last couple of talks, you'll be starting to understand the importance of verifying your device and how we need to get everyone to verify their devices so that they're still in the conversation after when the exclude insecure devices work is done. So yeah, the word that we have been throwing around for transferring the cryptographic identity information to a new device is verifying your device. We at Element have been doing some informal usability testing, and the word verify hasn't gone down that well. It's a bit hard to understand what it means. So we're playing around with the word link. So in my head, I have an idea of there's a sort of bubble of my good devices, and when you log in, you just need to get your new one and kind of put it into the group of devices that are okay, right? So maybe link is a good way of saying bring it together. So link might be a better word for this thing that we've been saying. The problem is we talked about verifying our devices a lot. So if we make that change, it will take some doing. And then the proposed word for a device that is not verified, that we've been talking about, is insecure. So this is quite controversial because it sounds really bad. But I mean, I would argue it is really bad, right? And this is why we need to change it. Because it's not confirmed that it's actually your device. It could be some malicious home server. So yeah, the word that we've been talking about is insecure. But again, after the informal usability testing that we've been doing, that word just seems really scary, and maybe might imply your device is compromised in some way or something like that. So there's real potential for confusion there. So what we've been playing around with and probably will propose in this proposal is that there are two ways of thinking about this, because it depends on whether you're talking about your own device or someone else's device. So if someone else has an unverified device, you don't really want to be communicating with that device because it might not be them. So we're talking about maybe that we should call that an unconfirmed device. But if you have an unverified device, you just need to link it, right? it's not that bad. It just needs fixing. So maybe calling it an unlinked device would be a good word for that. Anyway, so there are these things called devices. They should be verified. If they're not verified, they're insecure. Maybe those other words. And we recommend avoiding talking about cross-signing your devices, or talking about transferring device keys, or signing devices, or things like that. Because who knows what those things mean. All right, so moving on from verifying devices to a really different concept that is really easy to confuse with it, which is verifying users. So one really good argument for not talking about verifying devices is that we probably should be talking about verifying users unless we find a better word for that. So users that you talk to normally are not verified. Most people don't verify all the users that they talk to. But if you do verify with a user, which you normally do by either talking to them in person or on a video call and comparing emojis, that means that you have a cryptographic guarantee that no one is listening in to your conversations. This is completely different from verifying devices, even though you can do the emoji thing to verify your devices as well, so it's really confusing. We're using the same word, using the same process, cryptographically really similar, but for a user, completely different. And I was so confused about this for so long when I came across Matrix, so I really hope that we can make it better. Just a note about verifying users. In the element world, and I think we want to recommend this to other people, see what people think about this. We think that when you verify a user, you're giving us a signal that you really care about the identity information for that user, the cryptographic security of their identity. So what that means is if they reset their identity or something like that, you probably want to be told in really big red letters that something bad might be happening. Whereas if you didn't manually verify the user, you might be more close to a kind of WhatsApp use case where the information about the user's identity is there if you go looking for it, but it's not in your face. So maybe verifying users is a good signal that you care about their identity. Yeah. By the way, in future, we hope it might be easier to verify users in some kind of corporate setting or organizational setting where you don't have to do that manual emoji dance because no one does it. But yeah. Okay, but we won't redesign the whole of everything right now. We'll just talk about how we're going to talk about it. And then hopefully, if we clarify how we talk about it, we'll have better tools for improving it. Okay, so next word we need to talk about, which I've already used multiple times, is identity. So your identity, I think, is one of the real missing concepts that I had when I came to Matrix. And it's a lot of things, because if you see the technical note at the bottom, it's a set of keys that are stored on your device. But what it is, as far as the user is concerned, is in some sense it's a proof of who you are, or maybe just a proof that you haven't changed. Someone hasn't taken over your account from before. But importantly, the people who care about that information is the other people you're talking to, not the server, which is important, and we'll come back to. Again, from our informal usability testing, some people found identity really strange, especially the idea that you could reset your identity. Like, I'm not a different person. What do you mean I've reset my identity, or someone else has reset their identity? I think this is really difficult. We talked about this a lot and came up with tens of different words, all of which were terrible. We've been talking around maybe calling it digital ID, with a slight sense of it's not your identity. It's like a proxy for your identity. It's something that other people use to know who you are. But yes, all of them are confusing. Okay, so what does an identity give you as a user? Among other things, it gives you access to key storage, and key storage lets you read message history, words which we will come to. Okay, so let's clarify what I mean by message key. So a message key is the thing that you use to decrypt a message. These have been called various things, including things like room keys. But I think it's much clearer to say message key. I also think whenever we use the word key, we should try our absolute best to say which key, or use a word that explains why I might want that key. And mostly, I think the keys we need to talk about are message keys and recovery keys. And hopefully we just don't talk about the others. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, and if you've been given a message by the server, which knows nothing about your identity, but you don't have the message key to decrypt it, you'll see a message in the app that says you don't have access to this message, or perhaps waiting for this message. And that means what we tend to refer to as unable to decrypt, which, as I mentioned, hopefully we don't see so much anymore. We used to see a lot. Okay, other concepts. Message history. So as far as a user is concerned, message history just means I want to be able to read my old messages. As far as the matrix protocol is concerned, there's two parts to that. There's the encrypted message, and there's the key to decrypt it. But the user doesn't really care about that most of the time. So if the messages are encrypted, then in order for the user to be able to read them, and in particular, in order for the user to be able to log into a different device but still read the messages that were encrypted for the other device, they need to store the keys somewhere, the message keys, so that they can get them back. So this thing of storing the keys in a way that the server can't read but on the server is called key storage. So, key storage. So if you tick that box to enable key storage, then the message keys are stored on the server in a way that the server can't read. And that is how you get access to message history. And so key storage is the word that we've been using, I think, fairly successfully in Element, and I'm recommending in this crypto terminology document. I really want to avoid talking about backup in this context. There have been some arguments about this because, like, if you have a very device-centric view, it kind of is a backup, right? So if you think of your matrix experience as being mostly something that happens on my phone or on my computer, and the server kind of facilitates it, then in some sense, storing your keys on the server is like a backup. It's like another copy of your keys, and that's why the word backup was used. But I really think it's an incredibly unhelpful word to use for normal people used to other systems, because a backup is like something stored somewhere else that means I can get things back if I lose them. But if I lose my matrix login and identity, that the key storage is no use to me, right? I need an actual backup that I actually copied onto some other system, which is a copy of the messages. So I don't think key backup is a useful way of talking about this, which is why I'm always banging on about calling it key storage. So if you agree, make sure you dead arm people if they say key backup. All right, so next concept, recovery. So you'll recall that we talked about identity, and part of the reason why we need to talk about identity is so that we can understand what recovery is. This, again, took me ages to get my head around. But your identity is really important. It proves who you are, it gives you access to messages, lets you receive messages from people. They know they're talking to you. And so you don't want to lose your identity. So we offer this service, which is to save your identity to the server, and we call that recovery because it's It's a thing which means if you lose access to your devices, you can still get back your message history and stuff like that, because you can get your identity, and your identity is what gives you access to your key storage, which gives you access to your message keys. So recovery is this ability to save your identity information on the server, but in a way the server can't read. And the way that works is that it's encrypted, and it's encrypted with this thing called a recovery key or recovery passphrase, which you must not give to the server, otherwise you lose the safety you have. So we don't have any a way of you giving that to the server. The server gives you the encrypted information and you decrypt it yourself. Okay, and so because your recovery key opens the door to getting a hold of your identity, it's really, really important. You mustn't lose it, and if someone steals it, it's bad and you need to deal with it. In the past, this has been probably the worst named thing in the whole of Matrix, because 4S is generally pronounced quad S, which means SSSS, which means, I think, server-side secret storage. And like, what is that, right? So, well, what it's useful for is making sure that my identity is not just on my phone, it's also somewhere I can get it back if I need it, even if I drop my phone in the river. Okay. So just to summarize what we've talked about so far, these are the proposed words in the document that I'm saying you can contribute to. Devices/sessions, which can be verified, making them secure. Verified users, that means no one is listening in. Identity, which is a proof of who you are and unlocks your key storage. Message keys, which unlock messages. Key storage, which allows you to unlock message history. And recovery, which stores your identity and can be unlocked with your recovery key. So I have more, but so I want to do a super quick check whether there's stuff that people need clarifying. If you have general questions, we'll do it at the end, but if you have something you'd like to ask, please do. Sorry to the hosts, I didn't warn you.
Hi, thank you. I'm dying to ask. Is it just me, or you didn't use the word account once so far, and why? I'm pretty sure that you thought about this.
Okay, so the question is why not talk about account? So actually, maybe the stuff we talk about in a minute will help a bit with that, but it's a really good question. So I think when people talk about account, they're talking about logging in with their username and password. And I haven't really talked about that. It is something you do in Matrix, but it's a bit separate from end-to-end encryption, which is why I haven't focused on it. But we will get to it. So let me do the next bit and then see if it makes sense. I think there was someone else.
Any more questions?
There's one at the back there.
I think, thank you. This is very essential, I think, to get to a common understanding. Since we also want to transport this to the users to some degree, I'm already thinking about localization. So I don't want to have this discussion in every language. Have you thought about how we can maybe facilitate that?
Yeah, so the proposal so far, and it's not all solidified, but the proposal is that this would become some kind of appendix to the spec, so it would be standardized into the spec. If and when that happens, there would also be part of that would be a process to localize that as well, but that's about all I know. Yes, we should do that is really the answer. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Also, this is immensely useful. I would appreciate a lot if this would be published somewhere loud and clear, and also visualized, because that would make so many people happy, I think. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So yeah, currently I will give links to where you can find it now, but the idea is for it to be part of the spec, and it should be visible in that.
Yeah. Didn't you say earlier that you were trying to avoid the usage of verification for these two things. So you have 2 bullet points, both saying verified. I think you mentioned confirmed as an alternative. Why did you not put it in here?
Yeah, linking and
or linking and confirmation. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm showing you here is what is currently in the spec proposal. But we've been doing this informal testing, and so we're about to try and propose changes to the proposal. But I didn't want to get ahead of myself, and so sorry, it's a bit confusing. But.
Any more questions? I think there might be one coming in chat that we can maybe say.
Can we vote for something? The link is perfect. Verified. Okay, this link is.
All right.
I think I should continue.
I think you can move on. Yes.
I'll continue with the rest of the thing, and then we'll do some more general discussion. I just wanted to make sure that any urgent questions got asked before. Okay, so all right. So that was why should we do it and what the words are. So next is here are some metaphors that might help us think about this. And we're getting towards answering the question in the title, so we're nearly there. Right. So. Why is matrix crypto so confusing? It's because we're not used to end-to-end encryption. We're used to trusting the server completely to be the trustworthy party in our system. And in matrix, the server is just like a connection in. And then the actual trust that we give is for individual people. So... why do I have 2 passwords? So it's because it's about who you're talking to. So your password for your account is about proving to the server who you are, but your identity information is about proving to people who you are in a cryptographically secure way. So I suggest that you think about your identity as being like an ID card that is used to give you access to things. And then think about your recovery key as a way of getting your ID card back if it's lost. And your ID card is what then gives you access to your message history. So let's unpack this a little bit. I need to put a bit of a caveat on this. So up to now, the stuff we've been talking about is proposed to go into the spec, and there's been lots of discussion about it. Now we get to the bit where I just say stuff that I think. Okay, so it's particularly not approved by anyone in design, but we'll get to that. Okay, so I now think of identity as being like an ID card, right? So it's a thing that I have, which does some job of proving who I am, and so when you connect to Matrix, when you get started using Matrix, there's 2 steps. One is to connect into the network, which is a bit like plugging in a network cable or something like that. It's just so you log into the server with your username and password, plug in the cable. Now I'm connected. But in order for people to be able to safely talk to me, I also need my identity card, not just to be kind of plugged in. So here is my really not approved by design UI mockups. So I think that logging in or getting into Matrix is a 2-step process. It's logging in and getting hold of an ID card. So if you already have an existing identity, you need to log in, and then you need to get hold of your ID card. So this is what we've been calling verifying, or what we might call linking. You need to kind of bring this device into the group of devices that have the right information to be provably you. And so at the moment we have the idea of verifying against another device, which essentially for this context is about copying that ID card to here. Or we have this option of using recovery, which we could just talk about much more simply as download my ID card from the server. And also, when we start talking about it this way, it becomes clear that there might be other options. So someone asked me earlier about storing some of this information just on a different server instead of on the Matrix server. But also, maybe you want your ID card to be a local file that you can just import and export, not trust some other service. And then also, we've got this nuclear option at the bottom, of if you've lost your ID card, you're going to have to create a whole new one and not just use a copy of the one you had before. And so that's like reset my identity in the old language. Okay, so that was logging in when you have an existing account, but the first time you log in, at the moment, it just feels like logging in, like any website or any app. And I think, again, this is very much me speaking, not anyone else, but I think that's a mistake. I think it actually is a two-step process. When you create your account on Matrix, you do sign in, connect to the network, and you also get issued an ID card or identity, but it's just invisible. So let's make it visible, and then this stuff might make more sense, right? So you sign in, and then it shows you a fake spinner for a few seconds saying, I'm creating your ID card, right? So that it's clear that something else is happening as well as signing into the server. You're also creating this thing which is important and exists on your local device. Okay, so once we have that set of concepts, we can talk differently about things. So instead of having to say, verify your device or link your device, you can say, get hold of my ID card, or create my ID card if it's the first time. And then you might get your ID card from another device, you might get your ID card from the server, from recovery, or you might get your ID card from some local file or somewhere else. And then if we're talking about, previously we'd be talking about setting up recovery. Now we could talk about save my ID card to the server. Like there are a few scary words, right? So maybe this is good. And then resetting your crypto identity, as we saw, would be, well, I've lost my ID card. I'm going to have to go to the government office and get issued a whole new one with a new number on it, right? And it's inconvenient and no one knows who I am anymore. Whereas resetting recovery, which at the moment is really hard to distinguish from resetting identity, would just become, oh, you've forgotten your recovery key? All right, well, we need to just resave your ID card to the server. There's nothing bad going on in that situation. So hopefully, I think these metaphors can help us. I mean, even if we don't adopt them as some kind of approved UI language, just in the way we think about it. Like I think it's helpful to think that the identity is this like copyable piece of information. It helps me anyway. All right, so a little bit more on what an ID card is. As I said, it's not about proving something to the server, it's about proving who you are to people. And actually, it's the thing that gives you the ability to encrypt messages in a way that people can trust. It's the thing that lets you decrypt messages because people send to devices that they know are linked to you. And also, your identity information contains what you need to get keys from key storage, so you can decrypt your message history as well. And properties of an ID card: it can be copied. You can save it onto the server, and to get it back, you need your recovery key. And if you lose your ID card, it's bad. People no longer know it's you. And if someone steals it, they can pretend to be you. So it's even worse. All right, okay, first of all, so just the technical information. I think we've probably seen this already, but when I say ID card or identity, what I mean are these various keys. There might be more in the future, but like I think one of the advantages, or one of the good things about this initiative is that it helped me to think about, there are all these different keys, but we just shouldn't talk about them, right? They're, as far as the user's concerned, the fact that there are multiple things in there is a distraction. What's important is you need all these keys for stuff to work properly and for people to know who you are. So let's just say identity, but inside that there's various keys, and there may be more in the future. If we add more features that need to do something, like with dehydrated devices, we might say, oh, we need another key. Well, the user just needs to think of that as part of their identity. The identity doesn't contain the message keys. This is another thing that really confused me. So the identity information gives you what you need to decrypt stuff from the key storage. It is not the key storage, but it has the key that you need to get stuff from key storage. And I think of recovery like a safe deposit box. Okay, so let me try and explain that. So If you have some valuable information you need to store, or some valuable valuables that you need to store in a bank, you might pay for a safe deposit box. And the cool thing about a safe deposit box is it may well be locked up by the bank, but the bank can't open your box. You have the key to open your box. At least that's how I think it works. So if when we're talking about recovery, we can think of it as a safe deposit box, and the recovery key is that key that you can use to unlock that box. So the server holds the box for you, but it can't open the box. But if someone gets hold of your recovery key, they can open the box and get hold of your really valuable ID card. So just to summarize the second part of the talk, which is the metaphors, I'm using the idea of an ID card to talk about identity. I'm using the idea of a safe deposit box to talk about recovery. And the key for that safe deposit box is the recovery key. An ID card proves who we are to people, and it can be copied to all our devices. So this is just, like I said, this is just my random thoughts. I'm really interested in your random thoughts. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy, for the amazing talk. We have a couple of questions, I think, and also one question from chat from earlier that I didn't have time to read out to you. The question is from BGT Lover. Could we use something like passphrase instead of recovery key? People may not understand what they want to recover.
Yes. So the problem is that we need to distinguish it from password. So yeah, if we had a password and a passphrase, it wouldn't be clear why we had those things. So part of the point of trying to establish the words is, like, I think our users do, if they use something like recovery, they do need to understand some ideas. We need to make them simple as possible, but we can't just pretend they're not there when they are. So I think we need some way of distinguishing from password, and recovery key is like the best we've done so far, and recovery passphrase, both of which are applicable.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Maybe I come from a different field, but I work on medical. We have identities already. We know who's working in our area. We knows which user is, so verified user is not super useful. But for us, the identity is, as I said, the person who works in hospital or the patient that shows up or whatever. So I'm thinking, like, this whole topic of the identity and you have your ID card and whatever, that's not what it really is. Like, I mean, I don't know, and I'm thinking about that, like, what's the better way of phrasing that and having that onboarding step? I mean, for us, ideally, we want to combine the login with the setup, because we're saying, you already signed on with your single sign-on solution. We already know who you are. Mm-hmm. All we need now is, I don't know, maybe a second factor or something like that, where we say, hey, we need some extra proof before you can get access to sensitive information, so please do this. Maybe that's a way to think about it. As I said, maybe it's also a very special area that we're in.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's too special. Like, I think that lots of organizations definitely have a very different way of thinking about this stuff. So that goes to both user verification and identity. Like, in that context, you could imagine both of those things could be completely invisible because they're just handled by the single sign-on or some kind of like more global system of identifying. So, I mean, if we have the right features, then people who are implementing in that environment will just be able to avoid many of the problems we talked about. So yeah, maybe code will, for some people, just writing the right code will make it a lot better. But we need to solve it for the other case as well. So we will need these words to be around in other contexts. But yeah.
I just wanted to give feedback on the talk title, because I feel you did not explain why we have two passwords. You explained what are my two passwords. And I think also that would be important, that the first step before we talk about all this is, why do we need to separate these two passwords? So the first step should be, why do we need end-to-end encryption at all? Like, what are the risk scenarios? Somebody could imitate your identity or whatever. And then we say, okay, so this is why we need two things. And now we tell you what they are or how they're called or whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, well, I think you've adequately demonstrated that you do understand why. But yeah, the idea of like connecting to a network that is not necessarily trusted, like when you connect to the internet, and then your actual communication over that network needs further protection is perhaps behind the idea. Yeah.
I'd like to challenge what you said earlier. You said our users need to know and understand this. I think you're wrong. I think you need to design a system where your users don't need to know and understand any of this, and where the system takes care of it on their behalf. People use end-to-end encryption with WhatsApp. People use end-to-end encryption with Signal, and they don't know any of this. They just use the system and it takes care of the problem for them. So unless you want Matrix to be the refuge for the geeks where we have to know things to use it, you better rethink your approach.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think we have a long way to go towards like a simpler and better system. I don't want us to go all the way to it being not visible, because we have advantages to Matrix that we lose if we go that far. So we have really excellent multi-device support, including message history. And if we start making that invisible, we lose our safety properties. So we actually, there are trade-offs here, but I think Matrix falls on the side of really excellent features, really excellent potential for security. And if we lose that in all contexts, then we lose one or both of those properties. That I do think, as we were talking about a moment ago, I think there are contexts where we can make this almost disappear, but I don't think in the like public network we can go that far. But let's talk more later, and maybe we go further.
Hi. I think my question turned into a response to the comment just now. So clarification, I'm not in industry or open source. I'm an academic, and in the academic world, this tension between informing users or not hasn't been solved. We still don't know, and I think I actually love the idea of visually showing in the user interface the two steps, because sometimes, as you talked in the previous talk, we do need to make the internals visible to empower users with making a decision. Is this the kind of security that I want? Is this a kind of system that I want to choose? And a bit of a challenge with making encryption completely transparent is that then it pushes the responsibility and the trust of the users, for example, on who is a verified user or who they say they are to the company. And then we do have already other platforms that have this more paternalistic approach.
Yeah.
You are delegating that to users and to verify each other. And that is by design, putting more work on users. The thing is, how do you reach out to the people that actually want that? So that was a little bit my question. It's like, I think there are some assumptions about who the users are or why do they go to Matrix. And perhaps the more transparent you make this, it's like, okay, it's going to be easier for meta users to come to Matrix, to Element, and understand what's going on, or think that it's a bit like the same. But if you don't want that, yeah, I agree. There needs to be very specific design to let people know who you are and what you're offering.
Yeah, well, so my personal response is like I want Matrix to be for everyone, and to replace email because it would be so much better if we could be more secure. So I really like the question because I want it to be as easy as possible. It can be so much easier than it is now, but I don't want to step to the point where, for example, you just trust Signal or someone else. I want to keep the properties of Matrix that are why I want it to replace email. So yeah. And the gentleman at the back's been waiting for a while, so let's do him after. But yeah.
I also. Okay, so yeah, I think the thing that I listened from the lady first is about the identity topics. I don't think that identity would be suitable here, even though we know that technically it's different. One is to prove to the server, and one is to prove between the user. However, the end user doesn't care about that. They actually want to just like it's work, for it to just work. So I could see that, and one clear example is from Facebook. Recently, they do it on Messenger that they use the PIN code, which is they try to avoid the collision with using the password. So this is answering the question why they don't use two passwords. They don't use the term password for the PIN code for the message anymore, because now they start to use end-to-end encrypted on the Facebook Messenger, and they start to use the PIN code, which you type like, it's not like it's like more, our key recovery is longer, but the Facebook is 6 digits, but it's the PIN code, and the core is quite like they're trying to avoid a collision with the password terms. But in that case, it means that we are kind of doing the similar thing, but they are handling it in a way that it just not collide with the identity, because identity is something that I would say that we don't reset it. So I don't think that the word identity would make sense. Even though that, yeah, I would agree that technically is correct that way. But in terms of the end user, we don't want to confuse the user with this identity, because there are many. For example, one company, they want to introduce their own identity card. Then it probably will collide with this kind of identity card to login, for example. Then it will collide with this identity for the encrypted message.
Yeah, it's really, like, I would say this is the most difficult word.
Yeah.
I think we need to be able to talk about it, but yeah, we need to find.
Yeah, I mean, my main concern is about the identity words.
Yeah. So, maybe there's a hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Maybe there's a layered approach, right? So, and I actually agree with the gentleman that, I don't think most users need to know about this. So, if either they're using their password to initially get access. Why can't you use that password to encrypt this recovery key, and they don't know anything about it? And then for users who say, well, there's some extra security by them maintaining that recovery key independently, you offer them that option. Right, so the default option is all they do, and the main risk with the password is perhaps the entropy is less or something, and that's the problem that passkey solves for you. The risk of somebody impersonating you, potentially goes down with passkey. So once you solve that, I don't think you need most of your users to know anything about the recovery key.
Yeah, and like I said, I think there are different use cases where different levels of risk and so on are acceptable. At the moment, we are determined not to trust the server, including the risk that the server might be compromised. And then, at the moment, at least in the kind of most general case, we can't mandate that it's just. Something that you could somehow get hold of by being in control of the server.
This is our last question. I would ask you all to ask your questions later to Andy in person.
Yeah, I'd be really happy to talk more. Yeah.
Thank you. You just mentioned the word, and it was also mentioned before. Was the usage of the word trust also sort of with verifying instead of replacing that one? Because this is more natural. I trust somebody. Then I verify somebody. So did you think about that? Was the first question. And second one, you stated humans as the receiver, but basically you have all the bots, and so wouldn't it be better participants instead?
Yeah, so humans is not one of the words that is in the thing. That was just my word. I used it, but it's not part of the formal thing. We talked a lot about using the word trust, and we got tangled up with, like, do I trust this actual person? Which is not what you're verifying, right? What you're actually doing is verifying that it is that person, which is a bit different from, do I trust that person? I might verify someone who I don't trust at all, right? But I know it's them because I verified them. So you can get tangled in a lot of this stuff, right? But yeah, okay.
All right, everyone, that's it. Thank you again, Andy, for the amazing talk. Give it up for Andy, please.
Thank you.